June 12, 1969. 2:14 a.m., a single wristwatch still night, somewhere inside the bamboo belts north of Nui Dat, Phuoc Tuy Province, South Vietnam. You step into that darkness with them. The air is a wet blanket, thick, warm, carrying the musk of crushed leaves and the sickly sweet rot of old rice husks. A high, insect-pitched chorus threads through the trees, punctuated by a distant, irregular warble of a night bird. Moonlight slips in thin slats through the bamboo canopy, painting cylinders of pale silver on the jungle floor. Each step is a negotiation with silence. On the point, Sergeant John Mac McAllister, 32, weathered jaw, eyes that scan like a radar, feels every vibration through the thin rubber of his boot. He is wearing jungle greens without insignia on the chest, a boonie pulled low, L1A1 SLR slung across his back, and a small Browning high-power at his hip. His breath is measured, his fingers, ink-black with oil and sweat, tighten around the stock. Beside him is Corporal Peter Hayes, pistol ready, machete looped low. Behind them a four-man stick moves in a single, rehearsed organism. They are SAS, Australian Special Air Service, the men who will not leave behind a boot print that another man can read. They move without maps at this hour. The compass in McAllister's hand is a private god. The patch of damp moss on a tree becomes a calendar. They hunt trails the enemy does not know they left. No radio chatter, no noisy radios chewing the night, only hand signals. A thumb to the throat means silence, a single forefinger across the lips means hold. Even those signs are soft as falling leaves. Their kit is stripped to essentials. The rifle, a small canteen, a bandolier, a roll of surgical tape, a couple of grenades, and a length of wire no wider than a thumb. They carry knives and patience. They carry knowledge of how to step where no sound will rise. Ahead, the bamboo grows close and brittle. The stalks clack quietly like the ribs of a giant. The air tastes faintly of gun oil and tobacco. Somewhere upwind a billy of water murmurs on a concealed stove. A scent of burning palm, a distant village, hangs like a question. McAllister can hear the soft, human symphony of the enemy camp, a snatch of Vietnamese song, the clink of a cup, the slumped breathing of men who believe the jungle keeps them safe. They are wrong. Safety in the jungle is a theory, not a promise. The stick fans out into a shallow V, each man a tooth in a trap. They crawl through a curtain of leaves, using elbows, not knees, minimizing noise. McAllister's fingertips find the stitching of an old rice sack snagged on a root, a trace of movement days old. He marks it on his mind and burns it away like a bad cigarette. Their mission is explicit but unspoken. Observe, disrupt, then vanish. No grand assaults, no heroics for television. They are a surgical whisper. A sentry walks a faint trail 100 meters away, headlamp slumped, machine gun across his chest. He is young. His breath is loud from exertion and fear. Hayes indexes him through an optic, a cheap, handheld monocular rimmed in black tape, and signals the plan: two-man stalk, silence the guard, withdraw. The two men glide into the dark like shadows sliding off a wall. At 50 meters they freeze. At 20 they become statues. McAllister remembers the training more than the years, the Australian school of jungle warfare that taught him to be a ghost. He remembers the lesson drilled until muscle took over. Breathe through the nose, lock the groin, relax the shoulders, learn to listen to the tiny things. The insect that changes pitch, the twig that will not snap back. Those lessons are alive in him now. He exhales with the patience of a man who has lived through ambushes and come to prefer the silence afterwards. At 8 meters they stop. The sentry is a rhythm of shifting weight and the scrape of canvas. Hayes takes the Browning, squeezes the safety with a finger that knows the gap between shot and sound, and fires once. The report is a small punctuation, muffled, precise. The sentry folds like a dropped puppet. No alarm rises. The laughter of men far in the camp continues unaware. For them, the night remains whole. Back to the V. McAllister's hands move like a surgeon's. They cut a length of wire and rig a small, improvised device, not to cause a catastrophic convoy explosion, but to create confusion. One blast on an outer trail, a snare here and there, a trip that will wake men with fogged minds and no idea why. The device is crude and ancient as war itself, but it is effective. They set it, back away, and melt into the bamboo again. The Australians leave no track. They step in the footprints of animals, in the soft fall of dead leaves, flattening their weight so the earth shows nothing but memory. When dawn gilds the tips of the bamboo and the enemy runs to check their perimeter, they find it empty, a distant scorch mark, a confused patrol, a rumor that grows teeth. Whispers pass through villages and outposts. Ko ma, there are ghosts. Later the phrase mutates in American units. Marines who saw the results will call them, half jest, half reverence, the ghosts of the jungle. But in the moment, beneath the moon, McAllister is simply a man returning his breath to normal. He recocks his SLR, checks the clip, and looks to Hayes. No fist pumps, no slaps on the back. A small nod, as austere as the land. They fade away along a path no map will ever show, a story the jungle will tell only to itself. Before they became ghosts, they were men made of sweat, mud, and repetition, forged not in Vietnam's bamboo but in the swamps and snakegrass of Queensland. December 1965. Swanbourne Barracks, Western Australia. The sun drills into the parade ground like a punishment. The recruits of the Australian Special Air Service Regiment are lined up under that white-hot glare, each one already a veteran of something, Korea, Malaya, or the restless bush itself. They wear no smiles. Every man who steps forward knows he is volunteering for something that does not promise return. The instructors call it selection, but the men learn quickly that the word is too soft. They are not being selected, they are being stripped down. For 3 weeks, the candidates live in a blur of exhaustion, 20-hour days, 20-kilogram packs, zero tolerance for weakness. A man's legs buckle, he gets up again or he goes home. Instructors shout little. They do not need to. The bush itself does the talking. Leeches drink until they swell like grapes, mosquitoes hum in swarms, and somewhere beyond the gum trees, the sound of a distant bell signals another dawn. One of those men, John Mac McAllister, learns fast that silence is a weapon. He listens to the rain's rhythm until he can move between its beats. He learns to find north by the feel of a tree's bark, to taste water and know if it's safe, to kill with rope or knife or absence. And at night, when the stars are white scars on the black sky, he memorizes the doctrine whispered from Malaya: search and destroy is for armies. Find and observe is for ghosts. By the time they reach the Jungle Warfare Training Center at Canungra, the men are shadows wearing skin. The instructors there, many scarred veterans of the Malayan emergency, speak with the certainty of those who have survived invisible wars. You will not fight the jungle, one tells them. You will learn to let it eat you and keep your bones hidden. Training becomes theater and ritual. They crawl through creeks until their uniforms rot from mildew. They spend hours lying motionless under palm leaves, learning how to become part of the scenery. They rehearse movement until their joints stop making sound, rolling the foot from the outside edge, shifting the weight of each step like a whisper. At night, they perform ambush drills in total darkness, guided only by touch and smell. Instructors watch through binoculars, saying nothing as men stumble or vanish. A few quit. Those who stay begin to move differently, not like soldiers, but like the wind before a storm. By early 1966, the call comes. The 1st Australian Task Force is heading to South Vietnam. The Americans welcome them with open arms and wide eyes. To the U.S. Marines slogging through rice paddies, these Australians seem like something from another era. Lean, quiet, almost archaic in their patience. The Marines move in platoons, the SAS in 4-man patrols. The Marines rely on radios and artillery. The SAS rely on instinct and silence. Phuoc Tuy Province becomes their hunting ground, a patchwork of rubber plantations, bamboo belts, and low hills that sweat mist each morning. The Australians are tasked with reconnaissance, to find the enemy, read his habits, and report him without being seen. They call it eyes and ears. But to those who see their work, it looks like something else entirely, an ancient art revived in the modern war. One Marine, Corporal David Reeves, would later describe the first time he saw an SAS patrol return from the field. They came out of the trees like ghosts, man. No sound, no chatter. Just these mud-caked figures walking in, eyes scanning like they weren't even back yet. We didn't even hear 'em come in. We thought they were part of the bush. The Americans give them nicknames, the Quiet Boys, the Bush Devils, and eventually, Ghosts of the Jungle. It isn't exaggeration. These leave no tracks. They move on the balls of their feet, avoiding dry twigs and loose roots. Their rations are minimal: dehydrated biscuits, canned meat, and rainwater caught in ponchos. They sleep in depressions covered with foliage, weapons always close, heads wrapped in netting. They do not smoke, they do not light fires. Their presence is erased each dawn. What they trade in comfort, they earn in mastery. The Viet Cong begin to notice missing sentries, strange disturbances on their trails, odd markings that weren't there the night before. Rumors start to crawl through villages, of tall men with foreign faces who appear and vanish, of eyes glinting in the dark bamboo. The Vietnamese whisper, Ma Rung, jungle spirits. And as the war deepens, those whispers grow louder. But mastery in silence does not come without its ghosts. Each patrol means days without sleep, the constant tension of being prey as much as predator. The jungle watches, listens, tests. For every successful mission, there are moments of almost being found, the click of a safety too loud, the cough swallowed too late, the enemy passing just meters away. McAllister and his men will learn that in Vietnam, ghosts are not only what the enemy fears. Sometimes, they are what you become. July 3, 1967. Deep inside Phuoc Tuy Province, a tangled basin of bamboo, mud, and mist where the air never sits still. The Australians have been out for 6 days. Their patrol, codenamed Wallaby 2, has one purpose: locate a Viet Cong supply route rumored to run through the long high foothills, linking the jungle camps to the coastal villages. For 6 days, they've spoken fewer than 30 words. The dawn light spills in thin, watery fingers through the canopy. The earth smells of wet bark and cordite from a distant skirmish. McAllister's four-man patrol moves in file, Mac up front, then Corporal Hayes, Trooper Miller, and Trooper Blue Thompson bringing up the rear. Each man carries the same load: SLR rifle, 2 grenades, water bottle, 2 days' worth of rations, and the peculiar quiet that has come to define them. The jungle is alive with the heartbeat of insects. Cicadas scream. The occasional rustle of bamboo echoes like whispering cloth. Somewhere to the west, a monkey barks a warning, the bush's natural alarm system. McAllister freezes, hand raised, the universal signal for stop. The patrol sinks into the earth as if pulled by gravity itself. Through the bamboo lattice ahead, movement. A flicker of olive drab and black pajamas. 5, maybe 6 men, each carrying AKs and rucksacks. Viet Cong porters, moving with the slow confidence of men who believe they're alone. Mac counts them quietly in his head, 1 finger for each silhouette. 6, maybe 7. He waits until they pass a narrow choke point, a natural funnel between 2 rock outcrops. His eyes meet Hayes. A simple nod, ambush discipline. Hayes signals with a single tap on the radio handset. No transmission, just readiness. Thompson shifts his weight, balancing his SLR across his knee. Miller checks his sightline. No more than 15 meters between him and the point man of the VC column. Time slows. The sound of boots in mud. The creak of a strap. A low murmur in Vietnamese. Then the lead man stops, perhaps sensing something wrong. His head tilts slightly. The forest seems to hold its breath. Then, snap. A branch gives way under Miller's boot. The lead VC turns, mouth opening, but it's too late. Hayes fires first, a short controlled burst. The man crumples without a sound. McAllister fires next, dropping the second in line. Thompson and Miller unleash precise, 3-round bursts that chew the bamboo to splinters. 10 seconds of chaos. Then silence. The Australians hold their positions, waiting for return fire. None comes. The enemy's small supply team lies broken across the trail, one still twitching, clutching at air. Mac's voice cuts through, low and measured. Check M. Fast. Hayes moves in, stepping lightly between bodies, scanning for signs of life. He finds packs full of medical supplies, a map drawn in grease pencil on rice paper, and a coded notebook. Gold. Pure intelligence gold. Within minutes, they collect what they can, erase their footprints, and fade back into the bamboo. The jungle closes behind them like a curtain. When a VC patrol arrives hours later, all they find are drag marks, a few spent casings, and a faint smell of cordite already being devoured by the humidity. To the U.S. Marines operating south of Nui Dat, stories of these silent Australian ambushes begin to sound like myth. Marines who slog through the jungle with platoons and radio chatter can hardly imagine 4 men moving unseen, striking like phantoms, and leaving nothing behind. One Marine sergeant would later say in disbelief, "We'd sweep an area for a week and find nothing. Then the Aussies would send 4 guys in there and come back with bodies, maps, and intel. No shots heard, no radio chatter. Just ghosts." The nickname sticks. It spreads through the task force and beyond, whispered with a mix of respect and superstition. Ghosts of the jungle. But behind the nickname lies exhaustion. McAllister's patrol returns to Nui Dat after 9 days. Silent, hollow-eyed, uniforms black with mildew. Their boots are soft with rot. They smell of smoke and blood and earth. When they walk past a group of Marines lounging outside a tent, conversation stops. The Americans watch them in quiet awe. One Marine finally mutters, "Hell, they don't even walk like us." They don't. They move like the jungle itself, soft, deliberate, unhurried, and utterly lethal. Yet beneath that calm surface, every man carries the tremor of nerves stretched to breaking. Hayes later writes in his notebook, "You stop breathing half the time. You listen for what's not there. The birds, the crickets. When they stop, that's when death's nearby. Sometimes, it's ours. Sometimes, theirs." Each mission teaches them something new. How to use the wind to cover movement, how to make the enemy think they're everywhere when they're nowhere at all. The SAS begin planting false trails, creating illusions, footprints of boots they never wore, spent casings left as bait, even recorded radio chatter mimicking local units. Confusion becomes a weapon. Fear becomes currency. And somewhere out there in the dripping green, the Viet Cong begin to fear not just the helicopters and artillery of the Americans, but the silence of the Australians. The kind of silence that feels like being watched by the forest itself. August 14, 1967. Near the Song Rai River, southern Phuoc Tuy Province. The jungle is awake, and the war hums in every leaf. At first light, a joint operation begins, U.S. Marines of the 3rd Battalion moving north along the riverbanks, while an Australian SAS patrol shadows them from the western ridge. Officially, they are there to provide reconnaissance, to watch, to listen, to warn. But by now, both sides know the truth. The Australians will end up leading the way. The Marines number more than 200 men, a company's worth of firepower, M60s, M16s, claymores, grenades, the thump of helicopter rotors overhead. Their movement shakes the jungle like a marching storm. Birds erupt from trees. Insects fall silent. Every boot step echoes. Meanwhile, barely a kilometer away, McAllister's four-man SAS patrol glides through the same terrain without sound. The difference is surgical. Where the Marines leave a trail of trampled brush and spent cigarettes, the SAS leave only disturbed shadows. Their faces are painted in charcoal and grease. Their weapons are wrapped in hessian strips to kill the gleam. They are ghosts, and this is their cathedral. By mid-morning, the Marines hit resistance, a burst of AK fire from across the riverbank. One Marine goes down instantly. The company hits the dirt, rifles up, shouting coordinates into their radios. But the enemy has already melted back into the tree lean. Standard Viet Cong tactics. Hit fast, fade faster. Captain Samuel Henders, commanding the Marines, slams a fist into the ground. "They're gone again," he mutters. Then the radio crackles. A low Australian voice, almost lazy. "Wallaby 2 here. We've got eyes on 5 VC, moving west, 200 meters ahead of your line. Recommend you stay put." Henders pauses, squints at the handset. "Say again. Stay put. We'll handle it." And before anyone can ask how, the line goes dead. Somewhere in the dense bamboo beyond the river, McAllister signals his men. No words, just gestures. They fan out in a crescent around the enemy movement. The Australians move like smoke, every step rehearsed 1,000 times. They can see the VC column now. 5 men, rifles slung, carrying ammunition boxes, laughing softly. They are relaxed, too relaxed. They think the gunfight is over. McAllister's patrol waits until the group enters a small clearing. Then, not a burst of gunfire, not an explosion, but a single, synchronized whisper of movement. Hayes drops the first man with a suppressed shot to the chest. Miller and Thompson fire almost simultaneously, their rifles coughing short, precise bursts. McAllister swings around, cuts down the straggler before he can scream. 5 targets. 5 seconds. Silence again. The Australians drag the bodies off the trail, plant a pair of tripwires with improvised charges, and vanish, disappearing back into the green without so much as a leaf trembling. Minutes later, the Marines advance, stepping cautiously along the same path. They find the result of the ambush: weapons, blood, and an eerie sense that someone had fought and cleaned up before they even arrived. Captain Henders stands there, helmet under his arm, scanning the tree lean. "Where the hell are they?" he mutters. Then, as if summoned by thought, McAllister appears. 1 second there is nothing, and the next he is simply there, stepping out of the foliage, face streaked in black mud, rifle low, eyes calm. "Targets down," McAllister says, voice low. "Trails clean. You can move forward." The Marines stare. One of them, still shaking from adrenaline, blurts out, "Jesus Christ, you blokes are ghosts." McAllister just smiles faintly, adjusts his boonie hat, and fades back into the trees. From that day on, the nickname spreads like wildfire. Ghosts of the Jungle. The Marines mean it as half-joke, half-reverence, but for the Australians, it fits too well. They've become creatures of that green world, neither fully seen nor entirely human anymore. That night, back at Nui Dat, the camp is alive with stories. Marines drink and swap tales about the Ghost Patrol. Some swear they never heard a single shot. Others say they saw shapes moving through fog, faces that weren't there when they looked again. But in the SAS tent, there's no celebration. McAllister sits cleaning his rifle under a dim lamp, listening to the rain drum against the canvas. Hayes writes in his notebook, "Same as always." Miller patches a torn sleeve. Thompson brews tea in an old mess tin, steam curling in the air. They don't talk about ghosts. They don't talk about fear. Because in the jungle, belief is dangerous. The minute you start thinking you're invisible, you stop being careful. And the SAS have learned, painfully, that the jungle has a way of humbling everyone who thinks they own it. Soon, the enemy will adapt. The Viet Cong will start laying ambushes for the ghosts, setting traps baited with false trails, human bait, and mines disguised as food tins. The war will shift again. But for now, for this one stretch of monsoon season in 1967, the Australians rule the darkness. And every Marine who's ever walked those humid valleys will tell the same story for years afterward. You didn't hear them coming. You didn't see them leave. You just knew they'd been there, because the jungle was quiet again. September 9, 1967. Somewhere east of Nui Dat, the jungle is weeping. Monsoon rain falls in endless gray curtains, hammering the canopy until the air itself turns liquid. Every leaf trembles under the weight of water. Mud flows in rivers through the low ground. For the SAS, it's both a gift and a curse. Sound dies in the rain, but so does visibility. Tracks vanish. Radios hiss with static. Compass bearings blur. McAllister's patrol is 3 days into what should have been a simple reconnaissance, track movement, along a suspected Viet Cong trail near the Long Phuoc hamlet. But something feels wrong. The jungle is too quiet. The birds have stopped singing, and not because of rain. Hayes gestures from the rear, hand flat, palm down, stop. The patrol freezes. McAllister crouches, scanning the ground ahead. Something's off. The mud looks disturbed, not by animals, not by runoff. Straight lines. Deliberate spacing. The jungle is whispering a warning. He leans in close, the rain drumming on his boonie. There, a thin vine, frayed just slightly, half buried in muck. His stomach tightens. Tripwire. He follows it with his eyes, tracing it to a clump of roots where a small wooden box is just visible beneath the leaves. Classic VC bouncing mine, a Chinese Type 67, designed to detonate waist high. He signals with 2 fingers. Trap ahead. Hayes' eyes narrow. The men move with surgical precision, marking the wire with a twig and stepping around it one by one. But the jungle has teeth in every shadow. They make it 20 more meters before Miller stops dead. He's staring down at something glinting under a fallen palm frond, a cartridge casing, .303 British, too clean, too deliberate. McAllister's instincts scream. Back! He hisses, but it's too late. A thunderclap of fire erupts from the tree lean. Automatic bursts tear through the rain. Bullets chew the bamboo. The Australians dive for cover, returning fire in controlled pairs, mud spraying like shrapnel. It's an ambush, and not a random one. The Viet Cong knew they'd come. Hayes rolls behind a fallen log, firing short bursts with his SLR. Thompson's voice cuts through the downpour. Left flank, 2 o'clock. Miller is hit, a grazing wound across his arm, but he's still firing, face pale, jaw locked. McAllister crawls through the sludge, cursing under his breath, trying to see through the sheets of water. He spots movement, black pajamas darting between trees, muzzle flashes flickering. He fires twice, quick, clean. One figure drops. Another bolts sideways. The rain is deafening. The gunfire becomes rhythm. Breath, squeeze, eject, move. Breath, squeeze, eject, move. Minutes feel like hours. Then, suddenly, silence again. The ambushers withdraw. The jungle swallows them. Only the rain remains. The SAS hold their ground, eyes sweeping the tree lean. No one moves. McAllister's heart pounds against his ribs like it's trying to break free. He signals check ammo, check wounds. Miller's arm is bleeding but not badly. Hayes has a torn sleeve. Thompson's helmet is gone. McAllister knows the truth. This wasn't random contact. The Viet Cong had baited them. A planted mine, a staged cartridge, a trap within a trap. Somewhere out there, someone had studied their methods, learned their silence. The ghosts were being hunted by their own reflection. That night, they hunkered down under ponchos, the rain still relentless. The jungle smells of rot and cordite. McAllister listens to the rain and thinks of what the Marines once said, "You blokes are ghosts." He wonders, not for the first time, whether ghosts can die. Hayes breaks the silence, voice low. "They knew we were coming, Mac." "Yeah," McAllister answers. "They're learning." Hayes nods, staring into the dark. "Then we learn faster." And they do. Over the next weeks, the SAS change everything. Patrol routes, timings, even the way they move. They begin leapfrogging trails, sending decoys ahead while the real patrol circles around to flank ambushers. They use fake radio transmissions to lure enemy scouts into false pursuit. Soon, the Viet Cong learn that hunting ghosts is like hunting mist. You can feel it, chase it, even fire at it, but you'll never catch it. Yet the toll grows. Fatigue digs into their bones. Constant humidity rots the skin between their toes. Every step is a gamble between life and infection. Their eyes twitch at shadows. They dream in green and gunfire. Still, they go out. Mission after mission. Each time quieter, faster, more surgical. Because that's what they've become. Not soldiers. Not men. Instruments of the jungle itself. By late 1968, the Americans have begun calling them the unseen line. Marines whisper that if the SAS patrols are in the area, the jungle is safe for them, because nothing dangerous stays alive near those ghosts for long. But McAllister knows better. No one owns the jungle. They only borrow it for a while. And someday soon, the ghosts will have to leave it behind. April 30th, 1971. Phuoc Tuy Province, South Vietnam. Dawn creeps in slow, pale, and silent, as if the jungle itself has run out of words. The war has changed. The world has changed. What began with silent patrols in 1966 has become a grinding machine of artillery, politics, and attrition. The Australians are leaving Vietnam. The SAS, who once haunted this jungle like spirits, are packing up their camp at Nui Dat, the last time their boots will press into this red soil. McAllister stands at the edge of the compound, watching the rain roll across the tree-line. The bamboo waves like a slow goodbye. Around him, the camp is alive with quiet motion. Men cleaning weapons that will soon be shipped home, crates being loaded onto trucks, laughter that doesn't quite sound real. 4 years, this place was home, a living, breathing labyrinth that had taken their youth and their sleep but had given them something in return, a sense of brotherhood carved in silence. Hayes walks up beside him, carrying a battered rifle wrapped in black tape. He looks older, thinner, harder around the eyes. "Can you believe it's over?" he asks. McAllister doesn't answer right away. He watches a pair of helicopters lift off in the distance, their rotors cutting through the humid air. "It's not over," he says quietly. "We're just leaving before it ends." 2 days earlier, their final patrol had ended much like the first one began, in rain and quiet. They'd moved through the long high hills one last time, checking on old trails, familiar landmarks. The jungle had changed, thicker, somehow, as if trying to reclaim what they once took. Near the Song Rai, they found one of their old ambush sites. The bamboo had grown back over it, smooth and indifferent. The spot where Hayes once fired his first silent shot was now covered in moss. The ghosts had been erased, as all ghosts eventually are. For a long time, none of them spoke. Then McAllister took out a small, mud-stained notebook, the same one Hayes had used to log their patrols, and buried it under a tree root. "No one needs to read this," he said. "The jungle already knows." Back at base, the Marines came to say goodbye. The 3rd Battalion had long since rotated out, but a few of the old hands still remembered the ghosts. One of them, Captain Samuel Henders, now hollow-eyed and gray around the temples, shook McAllister's hand. "Never thought I'd see the day you fellas left," he said. McAllister smiled faintly. "We were never really here, remember?" Henders laughed softly, shaking his head. "Yeah, guess that's true." He stepped back, gave a short salute, and watched as the Australians loaded into their trucks. The convoy rolled out under a sky bruised with monsoon clouds. The red dust rose in slow spirals behind the last vehicle, mixing with rain and fading into the mist. Nui Dat's perimeter wire, once sharp and humming with electricity, now sagged like a tired memory. As they passed through the final checkpoint, Hayes glanced back, one last look at the jungle that had been both ally and enemy. The bamboo swayed, the trees whispering their endless secrets. He murmured, almost to himself, "You think the jungle will remember us?" McAllister didn't look back. It already has. Years later, veterans from the U.S. Marines would still talk about the Australians, the men who seemed to appear when things went bad, who fought unseen and left nothing behind but calm after chaos. In dusty bars from Saigon to Sydney, the stories would grow. For men who slipped through enemy lines and brought back whole enemy maps. A patrol that walked through an ambush without being touched. A whisper in the dark that made the Viet Cong abandon their camps overnight. Every story ended the same way. They weren't soldiers, someone would say. They were ghosts. But the truth was quieter. Most of those men went home to small towns and ordinary jobs. They raised families, fixed cars, ran pubs, coached football. Some never spoke about the jungle again. Others woke at night to the sound of rain and thought they could still smell wet bamboo. John Mac McAllister disappeared from the Army rolls in 1974, quietly retired, no medal ceremony, no fanfare. His old unit file ends with a single line. Patrol leader. Multiple deployments. Exemplary service. No confirmed casualties under command. No one wrote the rest. That he had once led a war in silence, that he'd watched men vanish into green mist, that the enemy whispered his name in the dark. Because that's the thing about ghosts. They don't leave graves. They leave stories. So when the monsoon wind passes through the bamboo and the leaves start to rustle, if you listen close, you can almost hear it, the soft rhythm of boots moving where no sound should be. The jungle never forgets. And neither do the men who learned to disappear within it.